Hey, AE, how you doing?
I could tell you stories, but I'm having a pretty good day.
Good, good. I'm glad you're with me. I want to pick your brain a little bit. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, anything you want, dude.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on just kind of what your everyday um process is on a TV set because I know you've had experience on with us on like multi-camera, but
Yeah.
also single camera with shows like Dexter. And yeah, can you tell us like your name and what you do?
Yeah, I am Arthur Edward Chadwick. I sign all my drawings as A.E. Chadwick, and some people just call me A.E., which is always super fun. Glenda started that. And if Glenda does something, everyone else better.
That's for sure.
Um, and yeah, I've done multi-camera and single camera, and I don't know if how many people know the difference between those.
Mhm.
But there's a lot the same, and there's a lot of little differences. And sometimes people get into one world and only work on one type, like single camera people only do single camera,
Mhm.
and multi-camera people only do sitcoms, and people don't mix, which is always kind of weird. I've been fortunate that I've been connected to people that have had me on both types of shows, and I love it because I love all television. I originally, when I first came to LA, I spent a lot of time working on variety and events, and I also have a secret love of those kind of shows too. But I like scripted a lot more. Don't tell anyone. Um, and yeah, and the process is a lot the same. My day on each one of those comes out to be a lot the same, because I'm the guy who I draw stuff. I take the ideas from the production designer or even from the art director, and I get all of those down onto paper to make it into something that can be built. So at the base level, what I do of a day is the same. I come in, I check out the stuff that's already standing on stage. I see how construction is doing and if they have any questions. And then I get to my table where I'm taking sketches or scribbles or ideas and turning them into buildable things, as well as explaining all the smaller parts of it too. Where the molding goes, which way a door swings, all the tiny little details that finish out a set. The difference on single camera and multi-camera basically comes down to that single camera is shot like movies, so the sets have four walls, and multi-camera is shot like theater, so the sets have three walls that open up to an audience. And some people can't figure out how to draw the difference between those, I guess. Um, but yeah, that's what I do.
Uh, we met on well, our first project together was Lopez versus Lopez, but I had seen and heard about you for a long time. Um, what kind of brought you here to Hollywood?
Oh, you know what is that? I got a couple degrees in theater. I went to college for theater. I got into grad school to go, do theater design. I've been theater tech, and theater design straight through.
Mhm.
And it was when I was finishing grad school. Like I had already worked at a specific regional theater during the summers for years, and my graduate school was really well affiliated with with the major theaters. Like it was kind of assumed that when you left Carnegie, you would go do theater in New York, or you could pick a regional area. One of the really strong places like Minneapolis was very up and coming, or Seattle had a great theater scene. They still do. And after I had done my usual little summer job that I had a great time at, I was like chilling at my mother's house or something, in the middle of nowhere, thinking like, well, I can go off to maybe Chicago is really cool too. They have legendarily great live theater in Chicago, and that would be a neat springboard to other East Coast stuff while still having a rougher grad. And then here's the thing: I'm just laying on the sofa, right, and I'm watching The Simpsons, and it's that
Like we
episode
do.
where it's the episode where Sideshow Bob runs for mayor while he's in prison,
Uh-huh.
and 22 minutes of that, right? And I'm like, I just saw more outright comedy, hip social satire, political aware, just abuse. It was faster, furious, and funnier than anything that I had been involved with on stage for years.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm going to go do some television because TV is the theater of this age. Fight me. I say that to professors just to get them all worked up.
Yeah, that's a good
I,
one.
I can back up my thesis, but television is the great theater medium of this age, and I wanted to be part of that and wanted to work in that. So I had some friends that had moved to LA. Los Angeles was always kind of the redheaded stepchild of theater. Like no one really talked about it, didn't consider it a valid option. But I came out here, started working, and haven't stopped for almost 30 years.
Yeah, for me, I can only speak for myself, but like John Schaffner gave me my start. How did you get your start?
I when I first came out, I interviewed at some places to be a draftsman, But the thing is, all of my drafting at that point was design because that's what school teaches you. They teach you to go be a designer, to go be the top. They don't teach you how to do stuff to get it done. I mean, they teach you in like, you got your theater shop class, you learn how to build a flat. They teach you some basic stuff, but they don't just make it clear how much of the production is just details on pieces of paper telling guys how this lines up with this or where this stick goes or what this paint is. They don't spend enough time teaching you just to get all that down. I didn't have enough detail drafting for any shop to want to hire me. But I had a buddy who had been working for John Schaffner and Joe Stewart, and they're also Carnegie.
Yeah.
And we're like, a happy little mafia. We all love each other to pieces. So he recommended me to them. They hired me, and I worked there for years, meeting people, just learning so much more about television and about the job and drafting and drafting and drafting, just drafting so much stuff, doing all these shows of all different types, and getting more of a sense of what it took to put on paper. And that, was making me more valuable as a resource.
Right.
Um, and Joe Stewart, just is a man who knows everything about television and is filled with joy to share it with you.
Mm.
John Schaffner is a guy who knows everything about multi-camera and is a little bit worried about how much knowledge is in his head. John always seemed like he was fretting. I adore John Schaffner and his constant sense of like nervous energy. And I got so much skill there that was part of the process. Part of what I learned during my tenure at Schaffner Stewart
Yeah.
was that there is an entire job, the set designer, the draftsman job, which is underneath the production designer, like I say. There's an entire job where you don't come up with the ideas, you just make the ideas better. You make the ideas into a realizable thing and explain them. I've said that it's kind of like being the editor for a really good writer. Like the writer has all the ideas and all the raw ability and all of the stuff, but then the editor takes it and makes it into something that can actually be sold, that can
Yeah.
actually be, enjoyed. That's the job of a good set designer. Bad set designers are just draftsmen. They're just hands that do math, sit in the corner and don't talk to anyone. But a good set designer is like the editor for the production designer's ideas to get them onto paper. It's a job I didn't even know existed when I was in college, and that's what I get to do every day
I keep hearing that phrase. I didn't know that you can get paid to do this. And
now.
that goes for me too. But if there is for those who do want to become a set designer, what kind of programs do they need to learn or what kind of programs do you recommend?
um, this is the thing is that I'm not going to have an objective answer to that because I'm really opinionated about drafting. Um, and I'm really opinionated about what my job as set designer is. For example, what I mean is that like my drawings are all about very illustratively explaining an idea in real terms that can be built.
Hmm.
To that end, my drawings are very two-dimensional. I give a drawing looking down on the set. I give a drawing of all those pieces of the set. Now, there's some set designers that you'll talk to, some art departments that are like, oh, you need to learn Rhino and you have to learn, Unreal Engine, and you're going to have to be doing all the previs and the Adobe After Effects. And I'm like, that's not what the set designer does. That's previs, that's concept, that's ideas, that's for the production designer, maybe the art director, that's for the guys, that's for the illustrators, it's for the storyboard people. I take an idea and make it buildable. So I'm all about really aggressive two-dimensional drawing, stuff on paper filled with notes. To that end, I draft in something called Vectorworks, which I've always thought is kind of a dopey name, but it's better than its original name, which was Mini CAD. And I've been drafting on it since it was one floppy disk that fit inside a 9-inch, computer. Now it's huge, and everyone has big screens and does complex stuff. But at heart, it's just a way of putting lines on paper in a really manageable way. And what people need to learn is like, I'll give the caveat sometimes that anything you do that can communicate an idea is valid,
Hmm.
as drafting, is valid as a program, is valid as communication. If you can take that idea and get it on paper in a way that the mill can build it, then I don't care what you're using. Um, Practically, I'm going to tell you, you should learn Vectorworks.
Yeah.
You should learn SketchUp because all the art directors love to use SketchUp.
Hmm.
And sure, if you know advanced 3D stuff, that's never going to be bad. I can stand on my soapbox about how you shouldn't have to, but if you do know it, more knowledge is always good.
Yeah.
And there's some people that draft in AutoCAD. If you're on like a PC, people love AutoCAD. My line there is always like AutoCAD is accurate to 0.00000 millimeters,
Hmm.
and we're not building rockets. We're just building 2-inch, 3-inch thick flats, 4 foot by 8 foot that have to get nailed together. We're not building rockets. Um, but again, anything that gets that on paper and gets it into the mill, that's a valid form of communication. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and well, the other thing I wanted to bring up is that, recently we've been on similar shows together like Frasier and Happy's Place, and we just wrapped another pilot, Zarna. But your work is actually part of the pivotal part of being able to like translate the vision early on to the producers and to the actors, and like when they see your work, they're able to kind of get a glimpse of what is going to happen like in the next few weeks. And
Yeah.
it's always like the really good reactions as far as like if they, what they like, what they would like to add. And it's like I feel like I've noticed it's always where it starts, like the creative juices flowing as far as like what they want to see at the end of the show.
Well, part of what that thing is that it's that making it into a form that people can look at and
Yeah.
relate to is part of starting the dialogue. Like you can
Hmm.
have all the ideas you want, the producers have all the ideas, directors have all kinds of ideas,
Right.
but at one point you need to like stare at a piece of paper and figure out someone enters from this side,
Right.
there's a window here, and the lights go here. People need an answer to things. And
Yeah.
so for all the ideas you have, for all the ideas a production designer might have, as soon as they give me something that I can then draw into parts, but it might not be right the first time it gets on a piece of paper, but it's something that we can then look at and point to. It's like you say, it's giving people a sense of what they're actually going to get. And
Mhm.
then they can be no, we need more windows here, or wait, I thought there would be in Zarna that we just did, like in the early meetings,
Yeah,
looking at how the apartment was set up. The director said that they really wanted more space for a bedroom and didn't want to walk right into the living room from it.
yeah,
So we juggled a bunch of stuff around. Wasn't right the first time, but it
right.
was something you could talk about. You have to make it concrete and recognizable to
Yeah,
start that dialogue.
the like the plans that the plans for the sets are great because they do a similar thing of giving you a sense of what will be there. I mean, the
Yeah,
vision boards are also really cool to see, but when it comes down to seeing the SketchUp, I think it's when everybody starts to actually have an opinion and starts to really start dreaming up what they
yeah.
would like to see. And like you said, it's a quick and cheap way to start making changes to something that everybody wants to see.
Yeah, it's easier to move the bedroom over here and make it bigger when it's a piece of paper or it's a little 3D model than it is when it's on stage, when someone walks in and is like, "Oh, I didn't." So it's better to do that, yeah, when it's smaller.
And I wanted to bring up the fact that for us on multicam projects, we typically, well, I like to say like we're indoor cats. We do not leave the stage. That's our home base. But you've been on shows like Veep and Dexter and stuff like that that go on location, right? So
Yeah,
what is kind of your role when it comes down to stuff like that?
that's the most boring part. I like being on a stage. I like
Yeah.
building things. I like making worlds. I like having that total control.
Yeah.
Um, Going to locations is so often this hateful mix of um, scheduling and icons, like things we can't afford, something big. And so what I mean by hateful is that it'll be like that, we're going to build this entire thing on stage, right? Okay, but for the hotel, we want to do a big grand lobby, but it's just a page and a half. We don't have enough time or money to build all that on set. So we're just going to go to like this hotel and shoot it. And since we're already out, we're going to find a bedroom nearby to do this scene and a conference room to do this other scene. And so suddenly, three things that could have been sets have become locations just because that's easier to schedule. Generally, I always would joke that like the only time, like someone, if someone's on location, like outside walking up to a door, that's outside. If the sun is on them and cars are driving past, or there's like the San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge in the background, that's a location shot. But as soon as they open that door, they're probably on stage because we can control that. So we get
Yeah.
to build that part, and there's that crazy interface.
Right.
Unless it's just a little more convenient and cheaper for them since they're already out shooting this to just shoot the house here and go inside of that. And then all I do is go to an existing place and make a diagram of a room that already exists. And that's
Yeah.
totally boring. It's the opposite of design. And I loathe that. And that's part of why, honestly, I have a lot more fun on multi-camera is because it's indoors. It's always going to be a set. Even if they're going to the outside of a house, we'll build a little outside of a house and put some plants around it and light it really bright. And it doesn't look the same as like when they go to a house on Criminal Minds,
Yeah.
but it's a sitcom. We have a look, we're doing a thing. It's always going to look a little theatrical. I love that. It's always going to be on stage. I love that. There's more challenge, there's more fun in building things. Locations bore me to tears.
Can you share like an example with me as far as like when you've had like curveballs thrown at you on stage, like
Oh,
changes or something like that? How do you handle last minute requests or modifications?
that's it's funny. We have a line about that. My friend Daniel Sachs has this line that he's like, "Okay, we got revisions. It's not a roller rink. it's a wait, I did it wrong. Can
Go,
you
go,
edit
go.
this?
Take two.
Okay. He's like, it's not a Benihana, it's a roller rink. Um, and that's his example of the crazy curveball that will come.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we call it the Wednesday night surprise when they've rewritten a scene to be somewhere else completely different. Um, I'm hard pressed to think of when I've gotten a curveball like that recently because, to be honest, you roll with it so well that I haven't fixated on anything.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can come up with something. But mostly the other line I put on that is I'm always like, that's why we call it drafting, is because it's always changing. Everything is always moving around up until the minute that it's in the camera. Things might still change or become something else, or they're going to shoot in a different direction or need another part here. I'm trying to think of like a great, super fun, massive curveball, but mostly we roll with them. It
Yeah.
happens so much that it's not something that we fixate on or even notice. Um,
Well,
if I can think of something, I'll email you later with an idea.
okay. I'll, I'll, close you out with this question, which is, so if you were to do this all over again, what would you, do differently, or what advice
Oh,
would you give yourself?
if I could do it all over again, I would have come to LA. Uh, I would have. If I could do it again, I
Yeah.
wish I had known sooner what the other jobs were. I wish I had been exposed to more stuff. I wish I hadn't spent uh, so much time thinking I might yet be a production designer or in charge of something. I might yet be this or that, or maybe I want to be an art director before I understood what a set designer was. If I could do it again, I would have tried to learn more about what the jobs were. That's why I love you doing this and giving this to people, is so they can have a sense of the other jobs that exist, the other things you can get paid for. That's part of my joke. What I mean about like how, you know, school trained us to be designers. They trained us to be the top. They
Hmm.
don't teach you how many jobs under that
Hmm.
exist and how many of those are good, solid, fun jobs that you can be doing and making money, making a living. They don't teach you how many of those exist. And so you spend so much time figuring that out that by the time you get to one, um, that's when you're looking back and saying, I wish I'd known earlier what I could have done. I wish I had had more of a sense of what jobs existed. I don't know how much I would have done differently along that, um, but that's what I wish I could have controlled. Does that
Yeah,
make
I mean,
sense?
for me, it was just such a game changer, because I always knew I wanted to work in entertainment, but that was before I even set foot on a movie studio. And then once I showed up to Warner Brothers and I was able to, go on the set of Two and a Half Men and pick the brain of all the different departments, then I was like, oh, okay, so there's, lighting and grips and of course camera and stuff like that. But I didn't realize where I was gonna land until I kept, figuring out all the other roles that are out there.
Yeah, yeah. You know, along. I mean, there's a prop master on set who's
Mhm.
responsible for all of the crazy things that get built. Every little,
Yeah,
wacky toy or implement or something they have from week to week. That's a job. That's
right.
someone's job, is to do that every week. That's great. He has someone working for him who their entire job is to be on set waiting for those crazy requests to come. And, she runs over and finds they need an orange tennis ball or they need a can of soup for a gag. That's someone's job.
Yeah.
And they get to be on set, making choices, doing fun things, helping people achieve their vision too, their funny gag or just a great scene or anything people need. There's all these jobs that aren't just being the person up here in charge of it, but being equally responsible for the success of the show. And they're all great jobs. that they got to tell you more about how that exists.
Yeah, for example, with me, I mean, I get brought onto a show through the production designer, but once I do get on a show, I not only collaborate with her, but I also work with costumes and I get to work with props and I
Oh,
get
I
to
love
work
that.
with
Yeah.
set dressing. And so that makes it fun for me as well. And before I even got to like experience or gather my info, I didn't know that this was a paid job either.
Your graphics is so cool because a good graphics person is this interface between all of these departments
Mhm.
and the one of the faces of the show. You make the logo
Yeah.
that then goes out. You've just kind of casually made things that are now on televisions or on videos forever and are
Yeah.
recognizable parts of a show. That's just your job. It's just what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I just get a kick every time I get to see all the marketing and stuff like that,
It's
all
really
over the
cool.
city, billboards. So yeah, that's kind of where I get my, joy and I give a lot of gratitude to everybody that I get to work with.
It's super cool.
But thank you, AE. I appreciate you talking to me for a bit and giving a little
Anytime.
insight on your world.
Anything else I can tell you anytime.
Oh, we're gonna have to do a part two for sure.
Oh, yeah, I'll be ready for it. I'll have some more stuff. I promise.
Okay. Thank you.
Talk to you soon, man.
Bye.